Whether you operate one forklift or thousands, one location or hundreds, the new My Toyota customer portal can help you optimize your operation and material handling equipment. This one-stop, free-to-use platform is designed to help you take control of your information and make smarter decisions, all at the touch of a button. Register and access your data today at my.toyotaforklift.com. That's my.toyotaforklift.com.
Today's warehouse needs to keep inventory moving smoothly and quickly. Meet these challenges with on-demand warehouse labeling from Brother Mobile Solutions. Our mobile and industrial printers will help optimize your operations to achieve the speed, reliability, and durability your warehouse needs. With easy integration for existing warehouse technology, convenient portability, and upfront affordability, Brother Mobile Solutions is at your side when it comes to warehouse labeling. Try one for free today by visiting brothermobilesolutions.com/new warehouse or click the link in the show notes. That's brothermobilesolutions.com/new warehouse to try one for free today.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hey, it's Kevin Lawton with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. Today's show, I have two guests, both from Slip Robotics. I have Chris Smith, who is the founder and CEO over at Slip Robotics, and Jordan Sanders, who is the VP of Business Development. And Slip Robotics is helping to automate truck unloading in an interesting way with a giant platform. So we're going to hear a little bit more about that and exactly how does that work and where that idea kind of came about. And really the benefits of utilizing something like that and creating flexibility on your dock from a labor perspective and other perspective as well. So Chris and Jordan, welcome to the show. I think we're going to throw it over to Chris first because he's the founder here. And we definitely want to know, where did this idea come from? I mean, how did you come to found Slip Robotics? Tell us a little bit about your background and what led you up to this.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Kevin, for having us on. So the background is really quite simple. So my background's in supply chain and in factories, mostly in automotive. So I was at Cummins and at Tesla before or after that. And ultimately, you know, in all those scenarios and kind of throughout observing other supply chains, I noticed that in supply chains, there's a lot of what I call short haul, high frequency routes, right? So routes feeding manufacturing with raw material or outbound of finished goods coming from those factories, distribution to distribution transfers, all those types of things. And so ultimately having seen a lot of those and seeing how, you know, in many cases you'd load a truck for, you know, a half an hour, 45 minutes just to drive it 5 minutes down the road, it became clear that there had to be a better way to do that. And that's where Slip really comes in is finding ways to make those types of routes in particular super efficient and a lot lower labor cost.
Interesting. Yeah, it makes sense because I mean, we do so much loading and unloading of trucks throughout the day in the warehousing world. And like you said, a lot of times it's short travel, right? So it's like we're putting so much time into, you know, we're probably maybe tripling, quadrupling the actual time of that transit that happens. So making that faster and speeding that up and certainly addressing some labor issues too, as well on the dock there can help and go a long way. So I'm curious though, like what was the kind of like the eureka moment of like, you know what, this is time to do this thing. And this is the idea I'm going to go with.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that there's a single moment for us, honestly. Yeah. You know, really it built off of a bunch of kind of experience between me and some of the other founders. So we have two other founders as well. Mm-hmm. We were all previously at another startup building a large AMR. And ultimately, you know, what we found is, you know, if you have a large AMR and can move a heavy payload, there's some really interesting things you can do in loading and unloading, right? And so that's really where it comes down to. And you know, what's interesting, kind of getting back to that previous point too, is if you look at the loading and unloading market as a whole, you know, the high frequency short haul is actually a really big percentage of that market, right? So when most people, when they think about loading and unloading, like to think about long haul, right? I load a truck
Right.
and then it goes across the road and then I unload it on the other side. But for every one of those, there's 20 to 40 people doing a load and unload every half hour, right? That's going on that short haul. And so because it's so heavily skewed actually towards the short haul, the loading and unloading market, that's why for us, this was an interesting task, right? Because of just the frequency at which those are done.
Interesting. Yeah. I think it's a great thing to focus on. And, we're seeing a lot of, especially at ProMat, there was a lot of unloading containers, trucks, loading them, kind of different solutions, all very much different looking, I would say, in the approach that they're taking and the way they're trying to create this tool and go about utilizing this. And it's interesting because I think a lot of the focus on them was with the floor loaded containers and, kind of like you said, that long haul, like containers coming overseas, trying to unload those cartons and stuff like that. But you guys are focusing more on this short haul, as you mentioned. So talk to us a little bit about the solution, kind of what it looks like and how, I guess, you kind of arrived at that look and apparatus tool, whatever you want to call it there.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically the solution itself is a large flat AMR, right? So basically 3 of these AMRs fit into a 53-foot trailer. So when I say they're large, they're quite large. So they're about 16 feet by 8 feet, about a foot tall. And so the way it works is basically freight is loaded onto the AMRs in the staging lane. When the truck gets there, those AMRs go onto the truck. They stay on the truck during transport, and then they come off on the other side. So the nice thing about that is you get both a fast load and a fast unload, right? Because you can get into and out of the truck quickly. The other nice thing is that you don't actually have to do manipulation, right? So like we currently are loaded usually with a manual forklift or unloaded with a manual forklift.
Okay.
And as such, we can kind of punt on one of those difficult tasks in robotics right now, which is manipulation of pallets. And because of the variety of different pallets and racks and returnable containers that there are, it makes it a much more solvable problem by not dealing with manipulation.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a really interesting approach to it. Cause like you said, I think, some of the challenges have been with, the manipulation of the pallet and, especially when trying to get it into trailer, which can be a tight space, right? For like a robot or something automated to navigate and have the right placement in order to get, those pallets side to side or, put them in a specific position to maximize that cube or anything like that. So, kind of like you said, just punting that and then just coming up with very simple, clever, of course, but very simple really in the overall design and thought process of it. It makes a ton of sense. So tell us a little bit about the savings there, because you're still doing some manual pallet manipulation, but what kind of time savings are we seeing from, loading a truck the traditional way, driving the forklift in, dropping the pallet, driving out, getting the next one, versus with the Slip solution where you're just kind of loading up this platform instead?
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, savings are kind of multi-tiered. So there's a few different places where we recognize quite a bit of savings. The first one, and honestly the one that people don't think about frequently, is actually on the truck driver side. So, 23% of time for truck drivers is spent sitting at loading docks, waiting to get loaded and unloaded, right? And ultimately we changed that from, waiting half an hour, 45 minutes, 2 hours on average is actually the average amount of time spent. Instead of that, we can turn a truck through a door having fully unloaded it and loaded it in about 8 minutes, right? And so we can move that freight quickly and turn that door quickly. So a lot of our savings on those shuttle routes actually come down to how many drivers you need to execute those routes.
Interesting.
On the warehouse side, we also have significant savings. It's basically the staging lane into the trailer movement, right? We take that from that half an hour down to 3.5 minutes to go from a staging lane into the trailer, right? And the same thing on the opposite side, coming out of the trailer into a staging lane. And so those are some of the key kind of labor savings. We also show a ton of reduction in damage to freight because ultimately freight gets damaged a lot when it's being put into a container.
Yeah, that's very true.
and yeah, I mean, it's huge. And then And then from a safety standpoint, operators never have to go into trailers. We reduce a lot of forklift traffic. Mm-hmm. So there's all these different ways that we show good savings. And then the last one, which is actually the gravy on top, is we move the freight a lot faster, right? So if you're going, from a warehouse shelf into a factory that's 5 miles down the road, right now it might take you 2.5 hours to get from that shelf to line side, right? We can make that go in about an hour, which means you can hold less inventory at your factory. You have more production space if you're doing that. And so there's a lot of kind of ancillary benefits that really end up being the key drivers for a lot of our customers.
Very interesting. Yeah. Sure. Go ahead, Jordan.
Yeah, Kevin, just to add on to that, I think what's really interesting about our solution, and really what excites me so much about what we're doing, is that our solution solves a very discrete problem of trailer loading and unloading. It's a very hard task, very dangerous, and very time intensive. But what's really interesting about it is that our customers are actually, by optimizing one piece of a process, a very core piece of a process, they're actually seeing massive savings, not just labor savings, but actually massive productivity gains on the trucking side and inside of the facility, say on their manufacturing capacity. So as Chris mentioned, when you actually increase dock throughput, we have one customer, because they were actually getting material in and out of their warehouse and into their manufacturing facility a lot quicker, they were able to reduce their on-site storage at the manufacturing facility. Right. That freed up very valuable space inside the facility. And so that customer is actually able to add a new manufacturing line in their facility. So by optimizing truck loading and unloading, they actually increase the manufacturing capacity by 20%. So I think it's for me, and I think for us, what brings customers in the door is to automate the loading and unloading. What keeps them using Slip and scaling us is seeing all those benefits in terms of driver productivity over the road and in-facility productivity by increasing that dock throughput.
Step, step, step. Do you know how many steps your warehouse workers are taking a day? When your workers are walking, you're losing money. Endless trips to the printer or computer add up fast. Newcastle's mobile industrial carts with integrated power eliminate the walking to stationary printers and computers, keeping workers focused on high-value tasks, often doubling their output. Thousands of powered cart installations, including ones at the new warehouse's own micro-fulfillment center and in my previous jobs, prove that Newcastle customers get more done and save money. To learn more, head to newcastlesys.com. That's newcastlesys.com.
We'll be back after a quick break.
You hear a lot about supply chains these days, because if the past couple years have taught us anything, it's that an efficient, well-managed supply chain is absolutely critical to keeping businesses successful and consumers happy. I'm Will Haywood, and I host a podcast called All Business, No Boundaries, where we talk about supply chains, how they work, what happens when they don't, and the innovations that are redefining what's possible in the world of logistics. Join me for insightful interviews with thought leaders and industry experts. We discuss how optimizing supply chains can break down the barriers that are holding businesses back. That's All Business, No Boundaries by DHL Supply Chain. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Very interesting. Yeah. And I could definitely see all these kind of like, I guess, ancillary benefits, right, from putting this in place and optimizing that dock. Because like you said, I mean, even I think about situations where, like you said, where, I've been a warehouse manager and it's like, well, we're running out of space on the dock, right? And, we're waiting for that trailer to show up to load it and all those things. And it's like, well, we can't maximize necessarily our throughput or our output, or, we're now like staging stuff in aisle versus the dock or something like that. It gets tight, right? So when you have that kind of flexibility and that faster throughput on the dock, you're certainly freeing up that space for, further staging, which makes a ton of sense. But so tell us a little bit more about kind of like what does a dock look like with Slip Robotics implemented? I mean, because you're saying it's these like 16x8 platforms essentially. I mean, do you just have these platforms kind of all over your dock, or where do you store them, where, like, all these different things? So tell us, like, what does a dock look like, or I guess we could call it the new dock, right, with these automated technology in place?
Yeah, absolutely. So What it looks like, it's actually pretty similar in most cases. So usually the robot just sits in what was the existing staging lane, right? So it sits there, it's loaded with freight, similar to how you'd load it currently. And the only difference being that you're going to side load the freight into the staging lane.
Okay.
So there's some thought process around that. The other nice thing is that it doesn't even have to be at the dock, right? So because we can move all that freight at once, we can actually relocate the staging lane to wherever it should be in the facility instead of next to the docks, right? And so, we've done that in some operations where, they had a repack in the back of the warehouse and we staged freight onto the robots there. And then when the trailer got there, you just moved all that freight at once up to the front of the warehouse. And so there's some different things you can do in that case, but usually what it ends up looking like is 3 at the staging lane that get loaded with freight. So when the truck comes, oftentimes we work in those shuttle routes that have material going to a facility and also material coming back. And so usually we have 3 robots coming off the truck, 3 robots that have been staged with material going onto the truck, and then the truck keeps moving, right? So you basically implement this route where on both sides you're doing that swap, because you can get, fully unloaded and loaded in about 8 minutes doing that. And so that's generally how that looks on the dock.
Interesting. And I like the fact that you can, like you said, have, maybe you're staging something in a different part of the facility. It's not close to the dock, but you can still stage it on the slip and then have that slip come over to the dock and still be there ready to load, which I think is really, like you said, for like a repackaging or returns area or something like that is huge, because, typically we want to stuff those in the darkest corner possible because it's like the ugliest part of the warehouse, right?
Yeah, and then you have 26 or 52 trips with a forklift going back and forth just to get them into a trailer, right?
Yeah.
And so instead, you can just move it all at once.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So that's really cool aspect to it there. And you touched on something there I'm curious about, because you said, typically it would be, you have these 3 that are kind of shuttling back and forth if you have both facilities, right? If you own both facilities, whether it's from like a manufacturing to a warehouse site or some other way around. But I'm curious, what does the landscape look like in terms of, like, if I'm a shipper, I have a warehouse, right? And I'm using the same LTL partner every day, where does like ownership of the slip come into play? Like, are you guys seeing that, like, okay, the LTL carrier is going to take ownership of this slip, or the shipper is going to take ownership of it, and then you got to get it back from the LTL carrier? I mean, where is that ownership kind of playing out, I guess, in this scenario?
Yeah, so the easiest answer to that is it depends. We have a bunch of different use cases right now where we have carriers, we have shippers, we have customers, all of which could be the person who actually kind of has the relationship with us, right?
Okay.
And then brings on other parties. So, we work with a bunch of OEMs in automotive, right? And, they have inbound material coming from tier 1 suppliers, and then returnable packaging going back to those suppliers, right? And so it's implementing routes where, and then there's a different carrier that's actually doing the transportation, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a bunch of parties involved in these operations. And so what we do is try to make it as simple as possible for all of those to bring it into their sites. And so, we do that by making it such that there's no integration, right? There's no modification to the dock or to the trailer.
Yeah.
And then there's no IT integration that we need in order to operate, right? And so what that means is we can come into a dock we've never seen before and immediately be operational.
Yeah.
And so that's really important as we work among all these different parties within the supply chain, right? And so while we have a kind of financial relationship, usually with 1 or 2 of those parties, we can work among all of them.
And what I would add to that as well is that it is part of how we designed our solution to be this very easy to integrate, easy to deploy, flexible solution, but also our business model. And there's the reason for our robot as a service business model is also it helps facilitate those sorts of more complex, say, physical or operational interactions. So the way that we go to market is we have a robot as a service business model where it's basically a per bot per month fee or subscription that customers are getting. And so that actually helps facilitate a lot of, essentially, you're delivering a robot that then it can be used in a lot of flexible ways to kind of get the job done, but not needing a whole bunch of, a complex web of, contracts in place to make that happen.
Interesting. Yeah. I think it's an interesting relationship there, which we're trying to figure that out. Cause I think about the scenario, like the last warehouse I was running, like we were doing, anywhere from maybe like 6 to 8 trailers a day LTL. And I was just thinking like, oh, it's such a perfect scenario because sometimes we had some drop trailers, but then, somebody would come pick up a trailer, but they didn't always have an extra trailer to drop, and we stage on the thing, and then, it's the end of the day, and they're coming like last minute with the last trailer we need, and, somebody's got to stay overtime and load that up, and, that would be like the perfect solution there. So I'm like really, really interested in seeing how that kind of progresses and what that relationship like that would look like. I think it's very interesting, but definitely totally makes sense too as well. Like kind of the use cases you were saying in the beginning there, where it's like that internal move building to building. I think that makes like so much sense too. So it's really interesting kind of flexible idea for people that are like looking at their unloading and loading situation, and seeing that, there's some other things out there in the market as well. I mean, why would you kind of point them towards Slip Robotics, and, what would you kind of say is kind of the more value add on your side of the thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I think the big thing for us is speed, right? Ultimately, getting material in and out of the truck quickly is our biggest value proposition, right? We can fully unload a trailer in 3.5 minutes and fully load it in 3.5 minutes. That's the beginning of it.
Right.
I think the second part of it is that we can do that across all different types of material, right? So we can handle anything. Ultimately, we just replace the floor of the trailer. So anything you were putting on the floor of the trailer, you can put on us. And so it's basically that full flexibility while still having the increased speed. Now, where I think the opposite is also true, where I wouldn't recommend us, right, is in, across the ocean or long haul right now, right? And so that's because ultimately we give value to customers when we load and unload a lot, right? And so if you're putting a bunch of freight into a truck and then on our robots and then sending it 2 days across the country, it's not adding a lot of value to your operation. But I'd also add that your loading and unloading cost is actually probably a small percentage of your overall transportation cost at that point.
Yeah.
So really we optimize for areas of the market that have a lot of loading and unloading and where that is a significant portion of the overall supply chain cost.
Very interesting. And I mean, it sounds like the perfect fit, I mean, is really those palletized loads. But do you see where some people are, like, I'm thinking about, potentially like if you're loading parcels going outbound or something in the future, maybe there's like a relationship with UPS or something, right? I mean, do you see where people are like also kind of floor loading to the Slip robot too?
Yeah, there's definitely some opportunity for that in the market. So we've had a lot of discussions with a lot of players about this.
Okay.
I think one of the interesting things about it comes down to the fact that we, even though we exist in this market with a lot of loading and unloading solutions, we're complementary to almost all the other players in the market, right? Because ultimately, because we bring the load out to a point where you can load and the freight onto basically the truck when the truck's not there, things like a robotic arm loading system or a autonomous forklift can be used and optimized with us, right? So they can basically be used to hit rates that they couldn't hit if they were just in a trailer, because they can have multiple robotic arms working on our system at a time, right? And so there's a lot of opportunity for us to partner, and that's something that we're constantly looking to do with other providers in the space.
Interesting. Yeah. I'm curious about that. I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense, definitely for the pallet load. And, I think there's some opportunity there too for the floor loading as well. Just kind of like maximize cube a little more on like kind of those parcel shipments and things like that. So it'd be interesting to see kind of how that develops and what those partnerships entail. I mean, I think the solution itself makes a lot of sense. I mean, I said it before, it's like I know it's not as simple, right, as it seems. I'm sure there's like a lot of thought that goes into it and everything.
That's the biggest compliment. That's the biggest compliment.
That's what we aim for.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is like so simple. I mean, it's just like, it's like you said, it's just replacing the floor of the trailer. It's like taking the floor of the trailer and putting it on wheels, basically, right? And just kind of going in by itself, which I think is so smart and just makes such a ton of sense. And then having that flexibility too, where you can move it around the dock or to other locations, like you said, in the warehouse and stage there. And and have it come, I think is a great thing as well. So we kind of heard about, what the present is, I guess, of Slip Robotics, what's going on with you guys now, and how the solution was developed and came to be. But tell us a little bit about what does the future hold for Slip Robotics? What does this platform look like in the future?
Yeah, so I can talk a little bit about that. So
Sure.
Basically at Slip, we're always looking to optimize a few different things, right? And making the robot better in many ways, like shorter. Some of our biggest trade-offs are we take height in the trailer and we take weight in the trailer. So making it shorter, lighter is always a focus of ours. We also want to expand use cases, right? So ultimately, we work really well in the short haul, high frequency right now. We want to expand that, and we think we can using different capabilities that we can add to this base platform. We also want to, increase capability on it. Things like conveyor deck on top of the robot, racking, stuff like that, give us optionality in different markets to perform, and handle more different types of freight.
Interesting. Yeah. I'm very curious and interested to see how you guys continue to kind of evolve, and they're definitely interested in seeing, like you said, some more use cases and how this can really be applied to different things. And it's really such I'll compliment you guys again, say such a simple platform, but it's such a clever idea as well. So I really appreciate you guys coming on the show and talking to us more about Slip Robotics. Jordan and Chris here. If people want to learn more about Slip Robotics and are interested in potentially increasing their loading and unloading speed, how could they do that?
So if people want to learn more, they can go to sliprobotics.com. I've got a lot of great information there about ROI and use cases, videos of the bot in action. And I'll also mention that we love giving demos. Part of the simplicity of our product and the way that we built it is that we do what we call demo at your dock. So for customers, they can just tell us a date and a time and a place. We'll show up with a box truck with a Slip robot inside, get assigned a dock door, park at the dock door. Robot will autonomously drive out, having never seen the facility. Customers can load the bot with their own material, and then the bot will autonomously drive into, say, their trailer. So really, we're able to show the simplicity of deployment and use of our solution. And so as folks are interested in that, reach out, and we love to actually show you the bot working in your operations.
All right. Awesome. And that's a very cool demo. I think I need to get a doc just so I can get a demo. So I will definitely put all that information at thenewwarehouse.com as well, so people can easily find it. So Chris and Jordan, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you want more content from the New Warehouse, check out our new video series called All Hands on LinkedIn. Just search for the New Warehouse on LinkedIn and follow along.